Hello, welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. And this week is just going to be me talking about assessing the IT capabilities of 3PLs. Now, this is a follow up topic to one of the more popular episodes that we aired last year, which was four factors that companies ought to consider when evaluating 3PL partners. And one of those four factors, of course, was IT capabilities. So I thought it'd be good to kind of do a deeper dive today on that particular topic and at least share my perspective on some of those IT factors, if you will, that companies ought to look at when they're looking at their 3PL partners. Of course, I'm only going to scratch the surface here. When you're doing your due diligence, I'm sure you're going to look at you're going to need to do an assessment on a wide variety of factors. But today I'm going to focus on four that I think are particularly important and at least get the conversation started. Certainly, as is the case every week, part of this is to make it conversational. So if you've got a question or thought on this topic, as I'm going through sharing my ideas, feel free to post it via the chat feature or via the question button. And certainly if we've got time, I'll take a look at that and at least provide my perspective on your question. So with that, let me get started and kind of share my five factors here. Let me put up the first one here up on the screen. And the first one really is, kind of common sense, right? Is looking at the trends in IT investment for the 3PL. So how much has the 3PL been investing in IT over the past 3 to 5 years? And what does that look like? Is the level of investment going up? Is the level of investment going down? Is it remaining flat? Right? So trying to get a sense of where IT, how important IT is from an investment standpoint on behalf of the 3PL. Now, it's important to look beyond just the absolute dollar terms, right? Because increase in IT investment over the years may or may not be a good thing, and a decrease or flat may or may not be a good thing. So, for example, if the 3PL has been investing more in IT or spending more dollars in IT over the past 3 to 5 years, you've got to ask the question, well, what are you invest? Where are those dollars going, right? So if the increase is because the 3PL is investing in more people to drive innovation, they're implementing new technologies, developing new applications. Well, that's a good thing. If they're spending more money because they need to bring in more hands to maintain outdated systems and to manage data quality problems, well then that's not a good thing, right? So you got to kind of look behind the story behind the numbers. Same thing with decreases or levels remaining flat. That may or may not be a good thing. If the reason it's flat or decreasing because the 3PL has rationalized this infrastructure, right? Instead of having 20, 30 TMSs, now they just have a single platform. So they're able to now save money and be more productive. Well, that's a good thing. However, if the dollars invested is going down because the company is looking to cut costs, and that's an area that they look at to kind of tighten the belt a little bit, well, then that's not a good thing. So again, you have to look beyond the numbers and find out the story behind it in terms of why are investments increasing, decreasing, or staying flat. Um, of course, another part of investing is investing in people and really trying to understand, um, uh, the backgrounds, the roles, the experience of the people that they have on staff. Um, and again, getting more details around it. So having IT people that have 20 years of experience on the surface, that may seem great. Um, but if that individual's skills and learning ended 20 years ago, and they're not up to date on the latest coding languages, the latest architecture, and so on and so forth, well, then it's not a good thing, right? Because we all know in the IT industry, things change so quickly, particularly on a technology front and understanding the different languages that are used from a technology standpoint. And unless the 3PL staff, IT staff, can demonstrate that they are continuously learning, that they're bringing in talent that is up to date on these latest technologies and languages and so on, That's kind of a key capability there, because what you don't want is certainly IT people that are, again, not really up to date on the latest technologies, the latest strategies with regards to IT. So it's a very, very important piece of it, to really understand, the talent, the people side of the IT business, and what they bring to the table, and what experience and capabilities and skills they have, and how the 3PL is investing in continuous learning and strengthening of those skills of their IT staff. And then finally is, how is that money being spent, right? And I mentioned this earlier. Um, you want to make sure that 3PL is investing a majority of its IT dollars toward innovation related projects. That is, towards new capabilities, particularly customer facing applications, towards innovating or modernizing their IT infrastructure, versus spending their dollars on just maintenance, maintaining old mainframes, maintaining outdated applications, on proprietary languages, so on and so forth. So really, you want to see how that splits out, investment towards innovation versus investment towards just maintaining, keeping the lights on. So that's another important factor there. So again, investment in IT, looking at the trends there, and then really asking the questions to get more understanding, more color on why the trends are going up, down, or remaining flat. The second factor is really making sure that 3PL has a well-defined and documented IT strategy, roadmap, and goals. Okay, I think it was the great Yogi Berra who said, if you don't know where you're going, you may not get there. So you want to really understand, where the 3PL's IT infrastructure, IT capabilities, where they see themselves going, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And more importantly, are the priorities and the roadmap and the strategy of the 3PL from an IT standpoint, how do they align with your IT strategy and your expectations with regard to what you're looking for in a 3PL partner, particularly from an IT standpoint? So again, you really have to have that conversation, understanding, and making sure that 3PL has really thought this out and has a very well defined, strategy and roadmap, out there. So for example, certainly a lot of buzz these days around the cloud. So what is the 3PL's position on cloud? Is this something that they're going to be moving more toward? And if you're moving more toward the cloud, how does that align with what the 3PL is doing? Rationalizing infrastructure is something I already mentioned before, and this is something that a lot of 3PLs are working on. Again, a lot of 3PLs have uh, over time have amassed 10 different TMSs, 10 different WMSs, a lot of proprietary applications, and that creates a lot of challenges, both from a maintenance standpoint as well as being able to provide customers with timely, accurate, and complete data and visibility to what's going on. So from my perspective, what you really want to see there is, you want to see, as part of that roadmap, as part of that strategy, really some effort towards rationalizing and simplifying their IT infrastructure, and move more towards common platforms, that again is going to make their IT infrastructure and capabilities much more productive and scalable, while at the same time put themselves in a position to provide you, the customer, with more accurate, timely, and complete visibility to data. Um, and then, of course, a hot topic is something we've talked about here on the program as well. Is does the 3PL plan to continue to invest in internally developed applications and programs, and if so, in which areas and why? Or are they moving toward implementing third-party solutions? And if so, which applications are they looking at? Are they considering, and why? And then again, putting that into the context of, in terms of, are those capabilities are going to meet your requirements, from a data standpoint, from an information standpoint. Um, and again, tying it back to, as you look at that roadmap and you look at their level of investment, how comfortable are you that, based on how they're investing in the dollars that they're putting into IT and the people that they have, how confident are you that they're going to be able to achieve their strategic objectives and their roadmap, in consideration of their budget. Some of the things that I would look for, particularly from an IT roadmap perspective, is certainly investments going toward mobile capabilities. We all know that these days a lot of us are looking for the ability to interact with applications and be able to look up data via smartphones and tablets and really anywhere that we are. So really understanding what kind of mobile capabilities the 3PL brings to the table. And then, of course, BI and analytics. At the end of the day, I think that is the most important thing for a lot of 3PL customers is being able to have timely, accurate, and complete visibility to what's happening in their supply chain. Whether it's what's happening with my inventory, what's happening with inventory in transit, with my transportation shipments, um, and the ability for 3PLs to provide customers with access to that data, timely, accurate, and complete access to that data, and give customers tools with the ability to slice and dice that information across a variety of different platforms, I think is particularly important. So those will be some of the things that I would look for in terms of a roadmap, making sure that 3PL has those types of things. If they don't have it today, certainly I think that's a key thing that they must have today. But really looking to see where they're taking that, moving forward. Moving on to the next factor um, is talking about an infrastructure here. And let me see if I can put this up on the screen. For some reason, let me see right here. Okay. It's having a secure, redundant, and certified, infrastructure. We know that these days cyber terrorism is a huge risk, and we see it in the news every day. Certainly with Target and what happened there, and the security breach there, and other retailers are being impacted by that. And again, it cuts across all industries, and there's just a huge risk associated there. So you really want to make sure that that the 3PL that you're working with really has the right processes, the technologies, and capabilities in place to secure your data, secure your information, and to minimize the risk of any kind of breach or downtime that could be caused by any kind of malicious behavior by others. Of course, there are things like power surges and other things that can affect availability or can affect the infrastructure of the IT infrastructure of a 3PL. So we want to make sure that the 3PL has proper redundancy in terms of the data centers and other systems. Access control, who has the ability to enter these data centers. So not only from a IT standpoint, from an online standpoint, being able to access information, but also even physical security around these data centers, and who has privileges to go in there and not. So really understanding the policies and the procedures that 3PLs have with regard to the data centers. It's specifics around the connections to the power grid and telecom and internet, and certainly want to make sure that they've got data centers dispersed around the country, if not around the world, to be able to manage any kind of downtime in one of those areas. And that they're consistent. Those policies are consistent, around the globe. I mean, that's an important point here. Across all of these factors, is that particularly if you're working with a 3PL across multiple geographies, you really want to understand what the capabilities are in each of those geographies. Not only in their home country or headquarters, where obviously you would expect to have uh, the most capabilities there, but you want to make sure that there's some consistency and a level of capabilities across geographic regions that you're comfortable with across all these factors. Certainly, there's a lot of different types of certification programs. SAS, 70 Type 2 is one that I've seen. There are other ISO ones. So you want to make sure that your 3PL partner, with regards to their IT infrastructure, is participating in some kind of certification program, or is really following standards and best practices around this whole area of security, redundancy, with regards to their IT infrastructure. So that's the third factor there. Again, that one's a little bit more infrastructure specific, but obviously it's very critical in this day and age to really pay attention to that. And that's really where you as a customer, your IT folks need to get involved, particularly in that, and your data center folks need to get involved with that to, as part of the due diligence process to make sure that you're comfortable with the policies and procedures and capabilities that 3PLs have in that area. So moving on to the next factor is with regards to customer applications. Because at the end of the day, that's where on a day-to-day basis, that's where customers are going to engage the most directly with their 3PLs, and it's really looking at how easy to use are the applications that the 3PL is providing you. Whether they're on a mobile platform like I talked about before, or whether it's accessing them via the internet. How easy is it to log on? How easy is it to learn and configure the solution to be able to see the data or the information in the way you want to see it, or perhaps be able to download information. A lot of shippers, I know I've talked about this or written about this. Excel still remains kind of a popular application out in the supply chain logistics world. So a lot of users like to download information to data to be able to download data into Excel to be able to manipulate it in ways that they want to kind of look at the data. So is that capability available? I mentioned mobile access. Again, that's critically important. And then of course is the ability to integrate those applications or those data feeds into your own internal applications, whether it's your ERP system or other applications you may have internally. So really understanding the integration mechanisms and whether 3PL has experience integrating with some of the internal applications that you have, and really trying to find out what are some best practices there, and what the history and the success has been, around that. So again, uh, I think this one's critically important because at the end of the day, this is where the rubber meets the road for a lot of shippers. It's really where they are looking to engage with the information, get visibility of what's happening in the supply chain, whether it's on the cost front, whether it's on the inventory front, whether it's on the transportation front, and being able to have that, be able to access that data and information quickly and efficiently, and in ways that makes it easy for them to work with that data, I think is very important. And that's an area that I think customers need to really look at and understand how those apps work, um, as part of their evaluation process. And finally, the fifth area, and I think this to me is another one of those things that are critically important. And again, it could be a little bit more on the IT, really more back end IT thing, but it ultimately, I think, impacts everything else that happens, and that is really understanding the data quality management process that a 3PL has. Like I mentioned earlier, BI and analytics is something that is a high priority for customers today. But without timely, accurate, and complete data, you get into the well-known garbage in, garbage out situation. And so it doesn't matter how powerful, how pretty, how many BI analytic capabilities 3PL may provide, if they really don't have an effective data quality management process, it's really for naught, because what you're looking at is really not a true reflection of reality. So you really have to really look carefully at the data quality management process that that 3PLs have. I remember, almost a decade ago, I interviewed a number of 3PL CIOs, and one of the surprising findings that I had was, um, across all those CIOs, they said they spent over 50% of their time cleaning data, cleaning and scrubbing data. This goes back to kind of where are 3PLs investing their IT dollars. Well, if that's what they're investing their IT dollars is in putting bodies and people to cleanse data and clean data, well, that's a symptom of them not having an effective data quality management process in place. So you want to make sure that that they have metrics in place in terms of measuring data quality. Um, and that they have processes in place when they are connecting with carriers, when they're connecting with your suppliers, when they're connecting with you as a customer, to ensure that the data and information and the documents that they're getting from you and your suppliers and your carriers are timely, accurate, and complete. And if they're not, what's the process for going about to you know drive continuous improvement around data quality management? You also want to be able to make sure that 3PL has some automated ways of doing this, because throwing bodies at it is obviously not a scalable and cost-effective approach to it. You want to be able to, within the applications that they use, within their infrastructure, be able to put in place some automation that will help flag when a data field is missing, can help flag when there's some semantic problems, and be able to then automatically inform that trading partner, about those issues, and then be able to drive some escalation if the problem's not fixed, or if there's multiple instances of data quality issues occurring. So you want to see some level of automation there in the data quality management process. So with that, those are really the five factors that I wanted to talk about today with regards to assessing the IT capabilities of 3PLs. Again, not a comprehensive list. Certainly more things that you as a shipper or a customer would need to look at, from the IT perspective. But certainly, from my perspective, these are the five things that ought to be at the top of the list, if not near the top of the list. We didn't get any questions today, so certainly, if you think of any questions afterwards, or if you're watching this program on demand, feel free to find the episode on talkinglogistics.com, post your question there or comment there, and I'll be happy to take a look at it and respond to it there. Again, thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.